So good evening and welcome to BUSTEC313. Tonight we are introducing content development strategies, understanding your audience, and some really fun activities this week, as long as you're open-minded. So let's go ahead and begin. And I want to talk about the keyword this week, as well as moving these here. Move this here. The theme of the week here is delivering really with impact. And impact is going to be the key word of the week. So the key word of the week is impact. And so how do we make impact? Well, we make impact by creating content that is engaging. We create content that is exciting, and we tell stories, we get to know our audience. So all of those really intertwine into creating these powerful presentations. A lot of times you're going to hear me using getting to know your audience and presentations within this context with a very strong marketing piece. And that is because there's a lot of marketing in creating effective presentations. Okay, so let's talk about some detail. First of all, the one thing I really want you to embrace in this class when we talk about presentations is change is really healthy. And there have been these presentations of the past, and I'm not saying PowerPoint is a bad thing. I myself use PowerPoint every day. This is an example of a PowerPoint presentation. But what we learn to do is with our presentations, we have this kind of cycle, and it's a progressive cycle. George Bernard Shaw once said, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So in sales, what we're trying to do is change your mind, and in marketing, we're trying to change your mind, and we're also trying to change and form your mind whenever we give a presentation, whether I'm trying to inform or whether I'm trying to persuade. The bottom line is there's a flow, and I want you to kind of look at this flow with me. We always start with the ordinary world, and what I mean by the ordinary world is where we're at today. So let's say it's a product or an idea. Right now you don't own the product or you're not aware of the idea. Then as you start to learn about it, you stretch and you grow. And at this peak right here is where the mature happens. Now, what's really dangerous is if we don't continue this spectrum, then we actually go on the decline. So when it comes to your presentation, I want you to get them to that point. Then I want that to become their ordinary world where they're expecting more. And then from that ordinary world, they expect yet more. And this is where we start to create positive change in a really healthy, albeit sometimes painful way. Now, traditional presentations are really boring. So one of the questions I really want you to ask yourself as we dive into this class is, how badly do I want my idea to live? So you're all going to embrace an idea in your final project. So this is something you really want us to know or believe or participate in. How badly do you want your idea to live? Because the enemy to persuasion is where you just blend in. And you've all been there. We've all been in classes where it just looks the same and feels the same, and you do blend in, and that really is the enemy of persuasion, and that's obscurity. You can't tell where you begin and where you end. If you're hearing the same thing again, if you've heard it before, there's nothing new. So what I want you to do is this week really embrace ideas, brainstorm, feel free to think about things in a different way. Now, that also means being creative, and being creative is taking risks. Being human and taking risks are the foundation of creative results. Peter Guber once said, being true to yourself involves showing and sharing emotion. The spirit that motivates most great storytellers is, I want you to feel what I feel. And the effective narrative is designed to make this happen. That's how the information is bound to the experience and rendered unforgettable. Facts alone will often fall short. Henry René Albert by de Maisson said, The public is composed of numerous groups whose cry to us writers is, comfort me, amuse me, touch my sympathies, make me sad, make me dream, make me laugh, make me shiver, make me weep, make me think. This week, I want you to tell me a story. There are these effects and the logistics to an effective presentation, and it goes something like this. We have the planning stage, and we're really into that stage right now. You're learning how to plan, what to plan, questions to ask, and in this planning stage, this determines the purpose, and you analyze your audience, you assess the presenter's situation, all that good stuff. What medium are you going to use? You are, in effect, in the planning stage. Then there's the preparation stage. This stage is where you're going to develop and organize. You're going to create your visuals, plan for Q&A, and we'll be starting this next week. Then you have the polishing stage. And in the polishing stage is where you practice, you ask for feedback, and you fine tune. Some things are going to work, some things aren't going to work, and you always, always, always prepare for disaster. Then you have the presentation stage, and this is where you apply effective delivery techniques, you present visuals, you handle, how are you going to handle the Q&A. There's a much different management style to handle questions and answers if I have 40 in the room versus 400 in the room versus 5. Then we're going to get to the post-presentation stage, and this is where you follow up and you assess and you adjust and you really identify what worked and what didn't. In this presentation cycle, we start with the audience connection, and we're going to focus on that this week. We then go to the presentation agenda, we talk about the background, we have the discussion, then we wrap up. So this is a cycle, and we use organizational design patterns, and there's many different organizational design patterns and roles that we will play. And next week, we start getting into the roles. Now, there's the presentation framework I want you to consider. When we talk about the presentation framework, honestly, it really starts with rapport. And that's getting to know your audience. And that's when you're speaking with them, whether it's in person or online, on the phone, via a recording or a posting or a webinar. And it's creating that connection. Our connection here together is that this is a content that we want to learn. Then by sharing that content, we embrace that fills why I'm here. But then there's the process of how we're going to get there. That's where we're going to spend a lot of time and energy. But altogether, it really is the logical connection. Now this week, I'm going to give you a little quiz on the audience connection. But prepping you for it, I want you to think of, how do you get that connection with your audience when you first begin? Do you ask a rhetorical question, such as, how many of you want to be a millionaire by the time you're 40? Do you tell a moving and relevant story? This is going to be the focus this week. Not that you necessarily start with a story. Perhaps your entire presentation is a story. Then there's the enticement. You want this information. The observation. The key benefits, the startling facts, and then the direct statement or overview, such as an agenda slide. Now, I want to talk about the Canvas overview and the resources about, with everything we want to learn this week, what's available to you and how are you going to get there, and what activities are you expected to participate in. So let's take a look at Canvas. Within 24 hours, I'll post this recording. Please remember that the key word is impact for this week. For right now, this week, Content Development Strategies and Understanding, this link will take you to the modules. I'm going to go through the modules in order for you tonight. However, I want to make sure that you understand at any point in time, you can go to modules and navigate them yourself. I have them broken into categories. We have the presentation that you're seeing tonight, following the recording, then the weekly word quiz. You then have the resources and instruction for this week. I've organized it by how to develop content and how to understand your audience. In developing content, there's multiple resources, but there's also the activity based upon the brainstorming section. In understanding your audience, there's information and a mini quiz about how to understand your audience. It's simply 3 key terms that are discussed. Finally, it's your weekly presentation, and this presentation is entitled, What's Your Story? Let's begin. I'm going to start with the resources and instruction because the weekly focus is simply an overview of this week. 2 basic objectives. Our topics are developing presentation content and format, brainstorming research, analyzing data, and determining delivery strategy, as well as researching the audience. This week, you will have the webinar posted within 24 hours. So for right now, it simply states coming soon. The Delivery with Impact slides are located here in PDF format. You're going to take the quiz this week. There's 1 key word. Have you caught on to what it is yet? This week, we're talking about strategies for developing content for presentations. This slideshow and talk here will go through step-by-step guidelines and strategies for developing content for presentation slides, as well as some formatting tips. I then have some additional resources for you this week. The first, from Data Pipeline blog, is Your Data Won't Speak Unless You Ask It the Right Data Analysis Questions. Analyzing data can be extremely difficult, so I have this video to help you better understand. This video is Hans Rosling, a famous statistician who's able to map, communicate with visuals, 200 countries, 200 years in 4 minutes. It's a great view. His entire presentation is 21 minutes long. It is a TED Talk, and if you'd like to find it, simply Google TED Talk, Hans Rosling, no more boring statistics. The next resource I have for you is how to brainstorm. Brainstorm is going to become a theme of this week, and this is how to brainstorm for content areas. I love this article because in this particular article, it talks about using a spreadsheet for downloading. This particular author created a spreadsheet that helps you brainstorm. It's in Excel, but you could upload it to Google for easy viewing as well. It has step-by-step instructions how to use the key. What's your topic? Who's your audience? This includes dragging the X to if they're an intermediate audience versus a beginning audience. The content structure. How are you going to organize it? List, how-to, Q&A, is this a news, is this a blog? It goes on and on. What medium are you using? Is this a blog post, a graphic, a slide share, a video, an ebook, a sheet, a podcast? Then you simply brainstorm your ideas. And one thing to remember about brainstorming, there are no bad ideas. The next resource I have for you regarding brainstorming is 7 brainstorming tips. These are tips and tricks to brainstorming, which is a great article. Coming up with the bad ideas first, break and build ideas, play word games, create mood board, play improv games, use of doodle, changing your physical environment. Great ideas when it comes to brainstorming. The next resource I have for you, because remember, we want to consider all sides of brainstorming. This is a great article regarding how brainstorming can also sabotage your presentation. So for example, you're likely to end up having too much information for your presentation. How are you going to narrow it down? You're setting yourself up for a lot of editing. For those of us who have a tendency to squirrel, it can make it more difficult to focus. and you might end up with unrelated points to your presentation. The best way to be an effective brainstormer is to be aware of the potential challenges as well. The next resource I have for you is a TED Talk. This is Andrew Stanton. If you've never heard about Andrew Stanton, it's an absolutely great presentation. There is some adult content, just a warning, but it talks about the clues to a great story. I want you to become storytellers this week, and this is a great place to start. Speaking of storytelling, this is your discussion for the week. Now be patient with me. I am going to challenge you on this discussion topic, but I want you to have fun with it. First of all, let's go over the brainstorming rules. There are no dumb ideas. This is in discussion format, so you'll be posting ideas over and around each other. It's a brainstorming session, so not a serious matter that requires only serious solutions. So remember, this is one of the more fun tools of quality, so keep it engaging and involved. Don't criticize other people's ideas. Yes, this is a discussion board, but I want you to support. It's not a debate. Do not tell me why the idea wouldn't work, but maybe, number 3, build on it. Often an idea suggested by one person can trigger a bigger or better idea by another person, or a variation of an idea on the board could be the next Velcro idea. In other words, it sticks. It is in this building of ideas that leads out of the box thinking and fantastic ideas. So please build on at least one of your classmates' ideas this week, and that's going to be worth 5 points. Reverse of thought. Often we say quality over quantity, and for those of you in a couple of my other classes, you know how I push quality over quantity. Well, this is one place where quantity matters. The more creative ideas, the better. Okay, so now that I've said that, what's the topic? Here's your topic. There are 3 objects below: a Rubik's Cube, a coffee cup, and a book. We have been asked to make one or all of them electric powered, which simply means to improve the item by adding batteries. What ideas do you have? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm crazy. That's the idea. If we were to add batteries to any or all of these items, what could potentially happen? So I put an example. I suggest that we add batteries to the binding of the book that could conduct heat and warm the hands of the reader on those cold winter days. Again, your ideas are only limited to your creativity. Please post one original idea. Do not repeat the idea of somebody else's, and respond and build upon at least one idea of your colleagues. Now, we start to move on into understanding your audience. So the resources that I provided for you here are, first of all, understanding the benefits of understanding your audience. This is a very clear and concise Boundless.com resource, which will talk about why understanding your audience prior to delivering a speech or a presentation is important. There are key points. Please review those. There are terms, as well as the full text and a video. Review this carefully. After you've reviewed this article, I have Know Your Audience from changingminds.org. In Knowing Your Audience from changeyourmind.org, these are questions that you can ask when preparing a speech, as well as examples and discussions. Knowing and understanding data trends is extremely important. The demographics of your audience, the psychological profiles, their power or their status, their first language, their preferred learning style, the likely attention span, the time limitations, how much knowledge they have, what interests do they have in your subject, what is likely to be on their minds at that moment, and other factors that might help you persuade. This is great information, and you can also download this in PDF format for later use. After reviewing this information, I have a little quiz for you. Very, very easy. You're simply matching the terms. Now here's your big project for the week. Every week you're going to have one presentation that you're responsible for. This week's presentation is called What's Your Story? You're going to begin this assignment by reviewing the information presented in this article below. 7 tips for storytelling that dazzles an audience. There are 7 tips for storytelling, and this particular author refers to them as the opening and closing of the curiosity gap, invoking VAC, and if you're not familiar with VAC, you'll learn in this article, conflict and resolution, appealing to the higher self, shock and awe, catalog of illustrations, internal and external components. After reviewing this article, you're going to create a 9-slide presentation based upon the content of this article. And yes, there's only 7 tips, but your first slide is going to be your title slide, and the last slide is going to be your closing slide, either a thank you or the end. Here's the challenge. This presentation will tell the story with only images. Please do not use words on your slide. However, create the script that would accompany the visual. Create your script in the word processor of your choice in the following format. Slide 1, title. Thank you so much for joining me here today. My name is blank, and I would like to talk about the power of using storytelling to dazzle your audience. Followed by slide 2. The result of this will be 2 uploads, your slideshow and your script. Going back to modules, going back to the focus of the week, this week we're talking about developing presentation content, learning and practicing the skill of brainstorming, and researching your audience. All of the items can be found in the module entitled Activities, and let's go to modules. Under Content, Research, and Knowing Your Audience. You can also access it by selecting Home and using the This Week link. Are there any questions? Fabulous. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and hang out for anybody who has individual questions. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you online.